Good morning and welcome to this Wave Energy Scotland information webinar. It's on the fourth innovation call, which is on control systems and follows on from other innovation calls on novel wave energy converters, PTO systems and structural materials. My name is Neil Davidson and I'm joined this morning by Tim Hurst, who's Managing Director of Wave Energy Scotland, and Jonathan Hodges, who is Senior Innovation Engineer. We have a 40 to 45 minute webinar. And it's your chance to find out everything there is to know about this current control systems call. Tim, I wonder if you could kick off by just giving us a quick introduction to what you're looking for from this control systems call and who should be interested in applying.
Okay, the objective of Wave Energy Scotland is to develop cost-competitive wave energy technology and to support the sector in Scotland. And to do that, to support that, we have a technology programme currently running. There are three themes in that: power takeoff technology, novel devices, and structural materials. This fourth call on control systems really complements those three technology areas and helps to bring them together into a wave energy system, if you like. So that it's the start of the integration process into integrating the subsystems and the devices together. So that's the purpose of running the call. In terms of who should apply, what we're looking for is control systems expertise, wherever that comes from, but probably come from other sectors where control systems are currently commonly used. Could be from any number of different technology sectors, but what we're looking to do is to bring that experience and knowledge to get into the wave energy sector, combine it with the existing knowledge that we have, which is considerable on wave energy technology. That's within the WES programme and outside of that, and to develop fully functioning control system solutions.
Thanks, Tim. That's a very useful scene setter. We're now going to pass over to Rona Campbell, who's Senior Development Manager at Wave Energy Scotland, and she's going to give us a short video clip just talking about the objectives of Wave Energy Scotland in general.
Wave Energy Scotland, or WES, is a subsidiary of Highlands and Islands Enterprise, and it is funded by the Scottish Government. WES is taking an innovative approach to supporting the commercialisation of wave energy technology and has a long-term commitment to the sector. WES is focusing funding calls on the key engineering and technology challenges faced by the wave energy sector, with the aim of reducing technical risk and making the sector attractive to private investors once more. Through these calls, WES can fund research and development projects up to 100% via a process known as pre-commercial procurement. Take a look at the call guidance document for more details. All projects follow the process illustrated in this slide, competing to pass stage gates and get through to the next level of funding. As the WES programme progresses, projects will deliver high-quality solutions that can be combined and integrated into wave energy converter or WEC designs. The programme facilitates collaboration across the calls, promoting opportunities for participants to work together towards this integration. WES's first funding calls were for power takeoff systems, novel wave energy converters and structural materials and manufacturing processes. These programmes are now in progress. The subject of this fourth call is control systems.
Tim, as Rona just mentioned there, Wave Energy Scotland already has a number of programmes looking at wave energy converter concepts, subsystems, and so on. Can you maybe just talk about the progress of these other innovation calls and where we're at with them?
Okay, I mean the programme is pretty well established now. We've got around 51 projects. We've committed over £20 million of funding, and there are 129 organisations involved in the programme, so it's quite well established. In terms of the individual technology themes, the power takeoff theme, we've gone through feasibility studies, we've gone through small-scale demonstration, and we're just now entering the large-scale demonstration phase. On wave devices, we've done the first development stage. We're just going through a stage gate now to select the best projects to go through to stage 2. That focused on performance in the tank and concept engineering. And with structural materials goals, we've really just started, and we've got funded 10 projects that are just starting off looking at a number of promising materials and doing engineering design studies. So that's the state of play of the programme as it stands.
You mentioned briefly the kind of stage gate process. Can you maybe expand a little bit about what exactly that is and how it works?
Okay, the funding scheme that we use for Wave Energy Scotland is through pre-commercial procurement. The advantage of that is it allows us to provide 100% funding or up to 100% funding for projects, but a requirement of that is that it has to be a competitive programme. So the stage gate allow us to run the competition, if you like. So we break the development into a number of stages. Technologies carry out one stage of development, and then they are assessed at the end of that stage. The best technologies go through. That provides the competition, allows the funding to be provided, but it provides another opportunity for us to allow us some engineering rigour to assess the, if you like, the value for money at that stage, the impact on the sector, if you like. There's a whole host of things that we can assess at those points and ensure we're picking the best technology. And in addition to that, having that structure to the programme allows us to demonstrate the risk reduction process as we go through, and also gives people externally some confidence that those technologies that are getting through and going to higher stages of development have done the right engineering in the background and have reduced the risk, and it just gives them a whole more credibility to the sector.
I suppose it's quite a complex process because you'll be comparing. You're not comparing apples with apples. There'll be quite different technology concepts, different subsystems, and so on. How does that stage gate assessment process? I mean, who does the assessment, and how do they arbitrate between different technologies and make an assessment process?
Yeah, it's not an easy process, but we aim to make it as open and transparent as possible. What we do is we publish a set of criteria for each stage gate. So there's entry criteria for each stage, and then each of the applicants, when they get to the end of a stage, complete an application form, and an assessment is made against all those criteria by a panel of experts. We get external experts in. We use some WES engineers, and they're scored against that matrix. So it's an open and transparent process. They're also scored on their performance over the past year, and their alignment with the broader WES objectives. So there's a defined process. It's laid out quite clearly before you enter the programme. It's in the guidance notes, and it's all published in advance. So we aim to try and take to make it as objective as possible. We have particular metrics that we want to see achieved at each of the stage gates, and we measure against those.
Am I correct in saying that control systems aren't necessarily a subsystem as such? They're more of an enabler. And can you maybe expand on how they fit into the overall objectives of what Wave Energy Scotland is trying to achieve?
Well, you can see the themes that we've got running at the moment, and they're all related, but they haven't been brought together into a wave energy system as we would call it. The control system is that opportunity to start integrating a PTO with a device, with a structural material. So it's an opportunity to almost start the integration process. We've got a lot of technologies in very different areas, different types of technology, but now we're starting to try and bring them together to form a system, if you like. And this controls call is an opportunity to do that. And one of the things we've noticed through previous work is that control systems tend to be left till a late stage in development. And by bringing out this call now, we're trying to encourage consideration of control at a much earlier stage, because the benefits of control are considerable in terms of overall performance of a system, survivability, maintenance, efficiency. It all comes down to how well those subsystems are integrated together through a control system.
Okay, thank you. We're now going to pass back over to Rona Campbell, who's going to give us again a short video section on giving a bit more detail about this particular call.
A key aim of the WES programme is to develop reliable technology with the right mix of performance and cost to compete against other energy sources. Advanced control systems have the potential to influence many of the drivers of cost, performance and reliability. They can play a vital role in the realisation of a commercial wave energy sector. This call will follow a 3-stage format, with applications limited to Stage 1 at this time. Stage 1 projects will undertake a feasibility study, demonstrating whether their control approach is promising enough to warrant further research and development. These feasibility studies will be relatively short projects, up to 3 months in duration and £47,000 each, excluding VAT. Funding up to 12 of these studies will allow WES to investigate a wide range of controls approaches and identify those to develop in detail. Stage 1 should be seen as an opportunity to demonstrate potential and as a stepping stone to the higher funding values of Stages 2 and 3. Stage 2 is for control system design and development projects up to 9 months in duration. The funding value for each Stage 2 project is expected to be £187,500, excluding VAT. Stage 3 will move to physical demonstration of the control system, with further increased funding of up to £500,000 per project, excluding VAT. This value will be confirmed as the programme develops and the likely approach to physical demonstration is understood. All 3 stages present another opportunity for successful applicants to collaborate with participants in other WES calls. The overall aim of the programme is to produce production standard control systems that can be integrated with WECs and their subsystems.
Thank you, Rona. We're already getting a few questions coming in through the portal, so I would encourage you to keep those coming. We'll address all of them at the end, so if you do have any questions, any clarifications you're looking forward, I encourage you to type them in now and we'll collate them and ask them at the end. I'm now going to pass over to Jonathan. Jonathan, you've cast the net quite wide and having quite a short first stage, and you're not really specifying what particular types of control system methodology are of interest. Why have you done it that way?
Well, before we scoped out this call, we carried out some research to help us understand the sector as well as possible and make sure that we scope the call to tackle the appropriate challenges that we're looking at in control systems. So it became clear from that research that there are a wide range of controls approaches that are applicable to this sector, that they've come from a number of different backgrounds. A lot of it's been early stage academic research work. Some of it's been in the wave energy sector, looking at tank test models and looking at small device development in C and moving on to large devices. But also it became clear that there are a lot of other sectors in industry that have spent a long time tackling very complex motion control challenges, and there's a lot of skills and experience in those sectors that could be brought to bear on the challenges of wave energy. So with the overall objective of this 3-stage programme being to take us all the way from concept level control systems to a fully functioning control system ready to be deployed in C, we decided that it was a good opportunity to have a wide look at all of the control system types that are available, enabling WES to pick a good range of control system approaches to go through to the real design and development activity in Stage 2. So that's the benefit for us. The benefit of a short Stage 1 to the actual applicants is that there is a 3-month piece of work to get into real detail explanation of what the advantages of the control system are and really demonstrate that it's feasible, that it's attractive, that it provides benefit to the sector, and they can demonstrate why it's worth funding to the next stage of development. There's also the opportunity that really innovative control systems might still bring about opportunities for novel wave energy converter technologies, and we didn't want to preclude that opportunity. So yes, we've been quite open in terms of what controls approaches we want to hear from, but we've been clear about what the scope of this call is, and that is to look at control systems which manage individual wave energy converters and their subsystems in order to bring about improvement in those metrics that Tim mentioned about performance, reliability, survivability and affordability. So it's clear what the scope of the control system needs to be, but we are open to applications from a wide range of different control methodologies.
Okay, so I suppose it would be possible and maybe desirable for any control system projects to collaborate with participants in other calls within Wave Energy Scotland.
Yeah, exactly, and that's true of all of the Wave Energy Scotland calls. We're always keen for collaboration between participants in the different calls. But as Tim said, control system development is really one of the central aspects of working towards integration of those subsystems into wave energy converter concepts. So Not forgetting what I said about the opportunity for innovative control systems to bring about new types of WECs and novel wave energy concepts, what we need are control systems that are applicable to technologies and subsystems that are already in existence and already being developed, and particularly to those technologies that are being developed in the WES PTO programme and in the Novel WEC programme and structural materials. So the structure of the overall WES programme is such that these control systems projects are going to be happening concurrently with the latter stages of the Novel WEC call and of the PTO call. So with physical demonstration activity being taking place in those other calls, there's an opportunity for stage 3 control systems demonstration to happen using the same hardware and perhaps even the same programme of work as the physical demonstration that's going on in Novel WEC and PTO. So collaboration can start nice and early, perhaps even in stage 1 control system projects, to plan towards that development for specific applicability to specific types of technology and demonstration using the hardware from other programs.
So would it be correct to say that, as part of the stage gate process, that might be one of the considerations you're looking at when you're assessing competing technologies, would be the ability to integrate with other technologies and other calls?
Absolutely, yeah. To be able to demonstrate that this control system is applicable to technology that is being developed elsewhere is going to be very important.
Okay, so what kind of activities would you imagine would be forming part of the feasibility studies that are ongoing then? Okay,
so as I said, we're expecting quite a wide range of control approaches to come through this call. So the activities that are going to happen in a specific project are going to be defined by the needs of that technology and that project. But in the call guidance document that's available on PCS, we've specified typical activities and typical outcomes that we would expect to come out of a stage 1 project. And that's really summarised by what that project needs to do to demonstrate that it is attractive and that it is feasible and ready to move on to the design and development stage of stage 2. But the high level types of activities that we're expecting, first of all, to define the control system that's being proposed, define its algorithms, its functionality, and specify how that's going to provide a benefit to the types of metrics that we always mention, with the performance, availability, affordability, survivability. Then it moves on to the real core of it, which is the feasibility study, really showing that the proposed methodology it can be developed, it can be demonstrated, and that all of the contents of it and all of the systems that it relies on are feasible. We then need to know that there is a route to development and demonstration of that control system. So one of the outcomes of a stage 1 project is going to be full definition of how the control system will be designed and developed, an application for that stage gate that we've spoken about and of how you get through to stage 2 process, and also at a higher level, but also very important, a summary of what the approach to stage 3 physical demonstration will be. So just to summarise, stage 1 really is the opportunity to present the approach, explain to us why it's a good control system, why its functionality provides benefit, and that there is a route to development and to demonstration in the future.
Good. You mentioned in the call document that you're keen to engage with other sectors, whether it's from robotics or other parts of industry where control systems are already well developed. Have you any ideas about what kind of sectors there might be, or how you might facilitate bringing these other sectors into this call?
Yeah, as I said, there are lots of sectors that have tackled motion control challenges, and examples like that might come from aerospace, where motion control is a key requirement. There's a lot of activity in the marine sector, perhaps even stability systems for maintaining control and stability of offshore or subsea vessels. Perhaps those control systems have got a slightly different functional requirement to this, because they're trying to keep something stable in the water, whereas we're trying to perhaps generate quite the opposite situation. The considerations, the algorithms, the approaches that are applied to those sectors could well be completely transferable into this sector.
Super, thanks Jonathan. Don't forget to keep your questions coming in. We'll get another few coming in, but just in terms of process, you will also have the opportunity to seek clarifications on your application through the Public Contracts Scotland website, which will be part of your application. So there will be an opportunity to do that, but today is your only opportunity to almost get sort of live responses to two of the key members of the team here. So please do keep your questions coming in. We're now going to pass over to Rona Campbell once more, who's going to talk more broadly about the other calls within Wave Energy Scotland, so we can find out a bit more what's going on.
The call will focus on the development of control systems for an individual wave energy converter and the subsystems within it. Stage 1 projects must demonstrate the feasibility of their control system, as well as any underpinning techniques or technologies. To do this, the scope of all feasibility studies must include every aspect necessary to develop a fully functioning control system. Some typical underpinning techniques and technologies are shown in this slide. For example, some control systems rely on inputs from measurement or sensing techniques. Many also use numerical models to predict the behaviour of the device. Most control systems will require the WEC or its subsystems to be able to implement control actions to influence the system's operation. The availability of these techniques and functions is therefore integral to the feasibility of a control system and must be included in Stage 1 projects.
So, Jonathan, again, in that clip, I think Rona was saying that you can propose any type of methodology, but then it must have the capability or the techniques to make the system actually work in the real world. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, exactly. So I mentioned earlier that through 3 stages of this call, we're trying to take control systems all the way from concept level or from academic development activity all the way through to the production of fully functional control systems that are ready for deployment in real devices in the future. So in order to be ready for that and to work towards that, first stage feasibility studies need to include all of the considerations, all the real world thinking and considerations that supports that aspiration. So they need to include all the supporting techniques, models, methods, systems and approaches that go around the control system algorithm to turn it into a fully feasible control system approach. So just to give a couple of examples of that, a control system algorithm that relies on wave measurement or wave prediction so that it can adapt its systems and subsystems to oncoming waves. Not only do you need to demonstrate that the control system algorithms and their functionality is feasible, but also that the prediction method is feasible and that it's delivering the right accuracy, the right sensing approach, and so that the inputs to the algorithms are achievable in the right timescales. Another example might be a control system that responds to the real-time behaviour of the device. That clearly needs to understand what that behaviour is, and it needs to show that the measurement systems and the sensing systems are capable of providing those inputs. Both of those systems are probably then going to ask the subsystems to make adjustments and changes to respond to those incoming conditions and those calculations. So Stage 1 projects need to be clear that the hardware under control, for example a PTO, has the capability to implement those control actions, so to change damping, to declutch, all those different kinds of things. So a Stage 1 feasibility study needs to include all of those inputs and clarity that the systems under control are capable of implementing the commands that it produces.
Okay, and what guidance have you given applicants to support scoping this activity?
Yeah, well, I said at the beginning that we'd done some research to help us with the scoping of this call. Another main objective of doing that research in the form of a couple of landscaping studies was to support applicants, to give helpful information to applicants on the sector, and also to help people who are active in calls as successful participants. So we carried out, as I said, 2 landscaping studies. The first one was a study into functional requirements of control systems. And what that produced was really a very detailed summary of all of the considerations and challenges and the functionality that is required of a typical wave energy system control. We then extended that piece of work in a second landscaping study, which was produced as a piece of guidance to subsystem developers, and specifically in this case to PTO developers. So that it provided information for how a subsystem developer engages with a control system and perhaps how they characterize their own system to feed into control system development activity. So both of those pieces of work were intended and I think are extremely valuable both to controls practitioners from other sectors that we've discussed coming into the wave energy sector to understand what the challenges and requirements are, but also to hardware and technology developers who will have to increasingly engage with this controls activity. As Tim said, the earlier that's done, the better. So this is supporting information to help and ease that integration process between those parties.
So it sounds to me like you're specifically trying to encourage engagement between new companies from other sectors with companies within or businesses within the wave energy sector to try and come up with a...
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we're always trying to achieve is bring in skills and experience from other sectors where they can be useful and have them working with people who are already experts in the wave energy sector, whether they be in academia or whether they be in industry in the wave energy sector already. So that engagement is really valuable.
Great, that's super. Just a quick point, keep the questions coming. They're coming through, but the more the better would be really super. I'm now going to pass back over to Rona, who's going to summarise the timeline and the application process. This is very important for all of you to make sure that you are fully cognisant of this. We'll pass over to Rona and then come back to the studio.
These are the key dates for this current call. You will also find these in the call guidance document. The next key date is the 12th of May, when potential applicants can attend a brokerage event in Edinburgh. This is an opportunity for structured networking, enabling organisations to develop ideas, make useful contacts, and build teams with the necessary skills and experience to make a successful application. Applicants must use PCS for all questions regarding this call. The deadline for questions is 12 noon on the 25th of May 2017. This call will close at 12 noon on the 12th of June 2017. Applications should be made using Public Contracts Scotland Postbox facility only. Hard copies will not be accepted. Remember, you must be registered on PCS in order to access the call documents and complete the application process. It is very important that you follow the procedures on Public Contracts Scotland. Applicants must use PCS for all questions regarding this call only and not for generic inquiries about Wave Energy Scotland. Applicants must ensure they know how to use PCS. Supplier user guides are available and applicants should read these carefully, especially the Postbox Supplier User Guide. In particular, please pay attention to the instructions for uploading and the dispatch processes. You should allow enough time to complete the uploading process on PCS. Applicants can contact PCS directly for assistance. Make sure you return all the documents required and do not include additional materials. Please use the checklist in the application form to remind you what is required. Take note of the page limit restrictions presented in the call guidance document. The system will not allow submissions to be dispatched after the deadline, so again, please leave enough time to complete the process. Late applications will not be accepted.
Well, that concludes the overview of the call, and I hope you picked up from that presentation from Rona how important it is to follow the guidance on the application process. All this information is available on the PCS website, and of course you can come back to this webinar, which will be available online, so you can skip through to that section just to recap on that. The next event after this webinar for interested parties is the brokerage event, which takes place in Edinburgh on the 12th of May. I wonder, Tim, can you just talk a bit more about this brokerage event and what people can expect through attending?
Yeah, the brokerage event will give you more information about the call on the background, the technical spec, and repeat a certain amount of what we've covered today. It'll also give some information from STI and the enterprise agencies about other support for companies that sits around the call, particularly for companies that perhaps outside of the UK looking to come into Scotland. So there's information on that, but primarily it's about brokerage. It's about companies that want to get together to form consortia to bid in, companies that perhaps only have a small part of the potential project, to get together, to discuss the options, form consortia to bid into the programme. So it's really, that's what the day's about.
And just in terms of engaging with it, do people, how do they engage with it in advance to set up potential meetings or see who else is attending and find out, a little bit more of the event itself?
Well, details are on our website, but on the B2 Match website as well. And that's a sort of an electronic means of making contact with people before the event.
Internet dating for the...
Yeah, perhaps giving an explanation of what your capability is, what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And then you've got the opportunity to actually book meetings with people before the event. So it's there's two choices. You can just turn up and see what happens on the day, or you can go onto the B2 Match website and put forward your profile.
Super.
And we often have companies talking to us saying that they don't feel that they can satisfy all of the needs of the spec that we put out, perhaps small companies. So the brokerage event is the opportunity to add to your own skills with the skills and experience you need to answer the whole project specification, and that's happened in numerous occasions on previous calls at this brokerage event that we always run. So if you can't satisfy all of the requirements of the control systems call, please come along and try and add to your own capabilities.
Super. We're just about to enter the question and answer section, and I can see on the screen we've got quite a few good questions coming up, so this is your last few minutes to get some of these questions up there, so please type away. I know it feels a little bit like we're labouring the point, but I'm going to go over the deadlines again because these are quite critically important. You can ask for any clarifications on the call through the Public Contract Scotland website up until midday on the 25th of May. So if you've got any questions that aren't addressed here, you need to submit them via the website. And as Rona said, your application must be submitted via the PCS website by midday on the 12th of June. Now, in previous calls, we have had scenarios where people have tried to upload their application on the morning of the call and it's crashed. People have missed the deadlines by 5 minutes, by an hour. And the process is very clear that if you miss the deadline by a minute, your application is null and void. So on the plus side, you can go onto the contracts website and start to upload your application as soon as you've got 70-80% of the information, and you can go back and revise it. So there's no issues there about going in, saving our application, and then moving on from there. So we'd encourage you to do that, and not to leave it to the morning of the deadline, because you may end up being disappointed. Okay, we've got some questions here. So the first one comes from Remy. Does physical demonstration mean testing of a deployed system at sea?
Not necessarily within stage 3 of the call. Obviously, that's where we're working towards. We're working towards fully functional control systems that will be capable of being deployed at sea. So all the hardware considerations that come about with that need to be assessed. But in stage 3 physical demonstration, that could be on a bespoke test rig in a lab. It could be using one of the earlier stage prototypes or models that have come out of perhaps NWEC stage 2 or PTO stage 2 or 3. Or it could be working alongside an NWEC stage 3 developer in a tank or in moving out to in-sea deployment, and the same with PTO. So it's whatever physical demonstration needs to take place in order to take that control system to the point where it is fully functioning and ready for in-sea deployment, if not already carrying out in-sea deployment.
And presumably those same kind of criteria apply to the other calls, other technology, and the PTO system, for instance, needn't necessarily be demonstrated at sea if it can be.
The other calls are a bit more specific in what we're asking for in those stages, but because this is such a key integration activity, it needs to fit in with the appropriate demonstration activities that take it to that next stage to fit with the systems that it is integrating.
Okay. Another question from Jeff. Should control systems companies be based in Scotland?
No, they don't have to be based in Scotland. The call is open to any organisation within Europe. However, testing and demonstration does need to be carried out in Scotland. So you as part of your plan, you'd need to understand how you could do that in Scotland. But the answer is no. Anywhere in the European Union. So
a subsidiary company of a American business, for instance, could could.
If they're outside of the EU, the situation is slightly different. What we would expect if you're outside of the EU is for the majority of the work to be carried out in Europe.
Okay. A question that I've heard regarding a number of the calls is about the intellectual property and who owns the intellectual property at the end of the project.
Okay, the intellectual property resides with the contractor. So the applicant keeps the intellectual property, and that's the arising intellectual property. WES does have a license to it, and as part of pre-commercial procurement, there is a requirement that contractors are prepared to license the arising IP generated within the programme to third parties at market rates. So that's the cost, if you like, for getting 100% funding for the development of that IP, that you must be prepared to license it. But that is just the arising IP. It doesn't include background IP or anything like that that a contractor would bring into a programme.
Yeah. Okay.
The full details of that, and it's not straightforward, are in the call guidance notes and in the draft contract.
Okay.
So if you want to look at that, it's there. But fundamentally, it stays with the contractor. WES is not interested in owning IP, developing its own technology. We want to see a contractor develop the technology. We want to see them make it commercially available and sell it into the market. That's our absolute objective. So you shouldn't have any concerns that we were trying to hold that up in any way through IP rights or anything like that.
Great. Okay. Another question from Nicholas, and it's about if you've got an existing wave energy converter technology. You're looking to become involved in this control or are interested in the control systems being developed within this call. How do you engage with that process?
We mentioned the brokerage event, and that is a perfect opportunity for a WEC developer to come along, understand a bit more about the call, see who's developing, and this goes wider than the controls call even. A WEC developer who's looking for a PTO can come and understand what technology is being developed in the WES programme, but they can also see who's looking to build a consortium to develop a control system for this specific call, put their requirements to those organisations and build a consortium to not only perhaps satisfy the development of a control system for their own device, but fit in with similar devices who perhaps might be able to use a similar control system. So that brokerage event is the perfect opportunity to start that process.
Yeah, very clear. That's the place to go. Go to the brokerage event. Question from Nathan, just on what constitutes a control system. Is it hardware? Is it software? Is it both? Is there a...
Can I take that?
Yeah.
It's all of the components you need for your control system to be fully functioning offering to future deployment in wave energy devices. So in stage 2, it's primarily about the functionality of the control system, but that's going to have to be implemented in the appropriate development hardware. When you get to the end of stage 2, you're going to be planning and carrying out front-end engineering design studies for how you implement that control system in a physical demonstration environment with a view to future demonstration in C. So you need to include in your program assessment of the appropriate hardware and use of that hardware as we go into physical demonstration. So there I'm talking about control system hardware, the actual computing hardware that the control system sits in, but you also need to consider what physical WEC, PTO, other subsystem hardware you're integrating with, and include either collaboration with those technologies in your program or certainly assessment of the feasibility and the readiness of that type of hardware.
That leads into another question from Stephen. It's around the fact that you're looking broadly at control systems, generically, but ultimately they will have to work with specific WECs and specific PTOs. Is there a conflict there, or is there a way to get around that?
That's where we will be heading eventually, but it may be possible that a control system, as I said, is applicable to more than one type of, or more than one specific technology. It might be applicable to a family of PTOs or a family of wave energy converters. So perhaps we're starting off slightly more broad and applying it to types of device and types of hardware, and moving towards narrowing down to a specific technology. But I don't really see that as a conflict. That's a route we need to go. And if a control system is applicable to more than one technology, then all the better.
Great. Just looking at the clock there, we've got another 5 minutes. We've got another couple of questions there. So again, now's your last chance. If you do put a question and it isn't answered here, I think we've managed to address everything so far. But if it isn't answered here, it will get answered subsequently on the Wave Energy Scotland website, which is waveenergyscotland.co.uk. Will it also be available through the PCS website, or is the Wave Energy Scotland website the best place to go for answers to any of these webinar questions?
There'll be a link to the PCS website on the Wave Energy Scotland website.
Okay, so it will, your questions will be answered if we don't get round to them this morning. Brexit appears everywhere. Will that have any implications for the WES programme? Tim, maybe that's one for you.
Not at this stage. We're still officially in the EU, and we're still operating under EU rules, and PCP in this case is an EU funding programme. So once you're in, once your contract is signed, then that will be honoured. So at the moment, there are, and certainly for the life of this particular call, there will be no issues.
Okay. And is there any limit to the number of stage 1 applications a particular company can make? They may have, a couple of concepts that they want.
There is no limit. You can put as many applications in as you like. However, I would say that it's getting selected is about quality
not
not about quantity. And if you bombard the PCS, mailbox with lots of applications, I don't think it will increase your chances. Quality is what we want.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's the main questions that we've addressed, all of them. So I think we're getting towards the end of the webinar. Just like to remind you again of the key dates. There's the brokerage event in Edinburgh on the 12th of May.
Yep.
Requests for clarifications have to go through the PCS website by the 25th of May. And if you haven't grasped it by now, I hope you have. The deadline is midday on the 12th of June, but you must familiarise yourself with the PCS website. It's quite a structured process that you have to go through. And make sure you get your application in on plenty of time. Any further questions you can put through that website for clarification. I'd like to thank Tim and Jonathan for their time, and thank you very much for dialing in.